The rain pounded mercilessly against the wooden platform of Silver Creek's train depot. As Sophia Fletcher clutched her sodden letter, the ink bleeding into illegibility much like her hopes were bleeding away into the puddles forming at her feet. The promise of a new life, of marriage to a man who had courted her through correspondence for 8 months, had evaporated with the telegram she'd received upon arrival. Married another stop, do not come stop. Sophia's trunk sat beside her, the only remnant of the life she'd left behind in Boston. At 22, she had gambled everything on this journey west: her savings, her reputation, her future. The rain plastered her chestnut hair to her face as she stared down the empty tracks, wondering how she could have been so foolish. The last passenger had departed the platform 30 minutes ago. Even the station master had retreated to his office, casting her a pitying glance before closing his door against the deluge. Night was falling, bringing with it a chill that seeped through her damp traveling suit and into her bones. A horseman appeared at the edge of the station yard, his silhouette hazy through the downpour. He dismounted with the fluid grace of someone who lived in the saddle, securing his horse before striding toward the platform. His spurs clinked against the wooden boards as he approached, and Sophia straightened her spine, determined not to appear as desperate as she felt. "Madam," the stranger said, tipping his hat. Water cascaded from its wide brim. "Station's closing soon. You waiting on someone?" Sophia swallowed. They won't be coming." The man, a cowboy judging by his attire, studied her face. His eyes, a startling shade of blue, narrowed with concern. "You have somewhere to go. I'll find accommodations," she replied, though she had no idea where. Her modest funds wouldn't last long. The cowboy glanced at her trunk, then at the darkening sky. Without hesitation, he shrugged off his long duster coat and draped it around her shoulders. The weight of it was surprising, as was the immediate warmth it provided. "Name's Aaron Barrett," he said. "I work the Double Cross Ranch just outside of town. Can't leave you here in this weather. Let me help you to the hotel." Sophia clutched the coat around her. "Sophia Fletcher," she responded, her voice small against the drumming rain. Thank you, Mr. Barrett." "Just Aaron," he insisted, hefting her trunk with ease. "Come on, Miss Fletcher. Silver Creek ain't the softest landing, but it's better than drowning at a train station." As they walked toward his horse, Sophia kept her eyes on the muddy ground. Her carefully laid plans had crumbled, and now she was accepting help from a stranger, a kind stranger, but a stranger nonetheless. The irony wasn't lost on her. She'd come west to marry a man she'd never met, and now her fate rested in the hands of another she knew nothing about. Aaron secured her trunk to his horse, then helped her mount. He swung up behind her, his presence solid and reassuring at her back. As they rode through the rain-slicked streets of Silver Creek, Sophia felt the curious stares of townspeople through lit windows. A proper Boston lady would be scandalized by her current situation, but proper Boston ladies didn't find themselves abandoned at train depots in Wyoming territory. "Silver Creek Hotel ain't fancy," Aaron said close to her ear as they approached a 2-story building on the main street. "But Mrs. Holloway runs a clean place. She might even have work for you if you need it." "Work?" Sophia hadn't considered that possibility yet, still reeling from the shock of her situation. "Folks out here always need good hands. What can you do, Miss Fletcher?" Sophia thought of her finishing school education, her piano lessons, her watercolors. None of it seemed particularly useful in this frontier town. "I can read and write. I know arithmetic. I can sew and cook passably." Aaron chuckled, the sound warm against the cold rain. "That's more than most can claim. You'll do fine." He helped her dismount at the hotel entrance, his hands strong and steady at her waist. For a moment, Sophia felt the solid ground beneath her feet as more than just physical. It was the first moment since reading that telegram that she felt anchored to anything at all. Mrs. Holloway, a stout woman with silver-streaked hair and sharp eyes, looked up from her ledger as they entered. Her gaze took in Sophia's bedraggled appearance and Aaron's protective stance behind her. "What's this, then, Aaron Barrett? Bringing in strays from the storm, madam," he nodded respectfully. "This is Miss Sophia Fletcher. She needs a room and maybe some work if you can spare it." Mrs. Holloway's scrutiny softened slightly. "Another mail-order bride left high and dry, I reckon. You're the third this year, Miss Fletcher. Men out here can be desperate and deceitful in equal measure." Sophia's cheeks burned with humiliation, but she lifted her chin. "I've learned that lesson, Mrs. Holloway. I can pay for a room and would be grateful for any employment you might offer." The older woman nodded approvingly. "Got grit, this one. I like that. Room's 50 cents a night, but I do need help with the laundry and cleaning. Could reduce your rate if you're willing to work." "I am," Sophia said firmly. Aaron brought in her trunk, setting it carefully by the stairs. "I'll check on you in a few days, Miss Fletcher. Make sure you're settling in." Sophia began to remove his coat, but he shook his head. "Keep it for now, I've got another." As he turned to leave, Sophia called out, "Mr. Barrett, Aaron, thank you. I won't forget your kindness." He touched the brim of his hat, a half-smile playing at his lips. "Just doing what anyone would, Miss Fletcher." Mrs. Holloway snorted softly as the door closed behind him. "That man hasn't given his coat to anyone in the 5 years he's been in Silver Creek. Come on, girl. Let's get you dry and fed. Tomorrow's soon enough to start figuring out the rest of your life." Sophia followed the landlady up the narrow stairs. Aaron's coat still wrapped around her shoulders like a promise not of romance or rescue, but of the simple human kindness that might just be enough to help her survive here in this strange new world. The morning light filtered through thin curtains as Sophia woke in the small but clean room Mrs. Holloway had provided. For a disorienting moment, she imagined herself back in Boston, before the events of the previous day crashed back upon her. The coat, Aaron's coat, hung on a peg by the door, a tangible reminder that she wasn't entirely alone. After dressing in her second-best dress, her traveling suit still damp from yesterday's downpour, Sophia made her way downstairs. Mrs. Holloway was already bustling about, directing a young girl and setting tables for breakfast. "Ah, you're up. Good. Have some coffee and biscuits, then I'll show you the laundry room. Mondays are sheet days." Mrs. Holloway poured a steaming cup and pushed it toward Sophia. "Thank you." Sophia took a grateful sip. The coffee was stronger than she was accustomed to, but the warmth was welcome. "That man who stood you up," Mrs. Holloway said bluntly as she worked. "Who was he?" Sophia set down her cup. "His name was Daniel Whitaker. He wrote that he owned a successful mercantile here. We corresponded for 8 months. Mrs. Holloway's face darkened. "Daniel Whitaker does own the mercantile. He also married Bessie Johnson, the banker's daughter, 3 weeks ago. A mighty convenient match for a man with more debts than customers." "I see." Sophia's voice was steady despite the renewed sting of betrayal. "Well, that's that then. What will you do now?" It was the question Sophia had turned over all night. "I don't have enough money to return east, even if I wanted to. And there's nothing for me there. My parents are gone, and I was living with a cousin who made it clear I had overstayed my welcome." She squared her shoulders. "I'll stay, work, make a life here somehow." Mrs. Holloway nodded approvingly. "Good answer. Silver Creek could use more women with backbones. Now, finish your breakfast. Sheets won't wash themselves." The work was harder than anything Sophia had done before. By midday, her hands were red and chapped from the hot water and lye soap. Still, There was satisfaction in the neat piles of clean linens, in having earned her keep. She was hanging the last sheet in the drying yard behind the hotel when a familiar voice called her name. Aaron Barrett stood at the gate, hat in hand, looking somewhat cleaner than he had in the rain. "Miss Fletcher, thought I'd see how you were faring." Sophia tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear, suddenly conscious of her work-worn appearance. "Mr. Barrett, I'm well, thank you. Mrs. Holloway has been very kind." He nodded, shifting his weight from one foot to the other. "Good, good. I brought your coat back." He held out a package wrapped in brown paper. "Your coat," she corrected gently, smiling. "I have it upstairs. You didn't need to bring another." A faint flush colored his tanned cheeks. "This isn't my coat." My sister left some things behind when she married and moved to Oregon. Thought you might need more than what you could pack in one trunk." Touched by his thoughtfulness, Sophia accepted the package. "That's very kind of you. It's nothing." He glanced around the yard. "Mrs. Holloway working you hard already." "It's good work," Sophia replied. "Honest work." Something in her tone made Aaron look at her more carefully. "You're not what I expected, Miss Fletcher." "What did you expect?" "Most Eastern ladies who come out here looking for husbands." He trailed off, seeming to reconsider his words, dissolve into hysterics when abandoned at train stations. She supplied with a wry smile. He chuckled. "Something like that." "I considered it," she admitted, "but hysterics rarely solve problems." "No, they don't." He twisted his hat in his hands. "Listen, the town's having a harvest dance Saturday next. Nothing fancy, just folks getting together before winter sets in. Thought you might like to come, meet some people." Sophia hesitated. The prospect of facing a town full of strangers, a town where everyone likely knew she'd been jilted, was daunting. But isolation wouldn't help her build a new life. "I'd like that," she said finally. Aaron's smile brightened his entire face. "Good. I'll come by around 7 if that suits." "It does." As he left, Mrs. Holloway emerged from the kitchen door, a knowing look on her face. "Aaron Barrett isn't one for social calls, Miss Fletcher, not since he came back from the war." "The war?" Sophia asked, surprised. "Fought for the Union." "Came west after, like a lot of men who couldn't settle back into their old lives. He keeps to himself mostly, works hard. Decent man." Mrs. Holloway gave her a pointed look. "Just so you know what manner of man is taking an interest." Sophia clutched the package to her chest. "He's just being neighborly, I'm sure." Mrs. Holloway hummed skeptically. "Those sheets dry yet? We've got rooms to make up." The week passed in a blur of new routines and hard work. Sophia's hands toughened, and she quickly learned the rhythms of the hotel. She met some of the townspeople as they came and went, enduring their curious glances and occasional whispers with as much dignity as she could muster. On Wednesday, Daniel Whitaker himself came into the hotel dining room with his new bride. Sophia was clearing tables when they entered, and the sudden silence that fell over the room told her everyone was watching for her reaction. The young woman beside Daniel was pretty in a fragile way, with pale blonde curls and a nervous demeanor. Daniel himself paled when he saw Sophia, his expression a mixture of guilt and defiance. Setting down her tray, Sophia approached their table. "Mr. Whitaker," she said calmly, "I believe we had correspondence." He cleared his throat. "Miss Fletcher, I received word you'd arrived in town." "I'm sorry for the inconvenience." Inconvenience. The word hung in the air between them. "Is that what you call it when you invite a woman to travel 2,000 miles on the promise of marriage, only to marry another in the interim?" The blonde woman looked stricken. "Daniel." "What is she saying?" Sophia turned to her. "Mrs. Whitaker, I presume? I'm Sophia Fletcher. Your husband and I were engaged to be married until quite recently. though he neglected to inform me of the change in circumstances until I arrived yesterday. The dining room was utterly silent now. Daniel's face had gone from pale to red. "Now see here." "No," Sophia interrupted, surprising herself with her boldness. "You see here, Mr. Whittaker. I don't know what kind of man you imagine yourself to be, but where I come from, a gentleman honors his commitments. Or at the very least, has the decency to break them before making new ones." She nodded politely to the stunned Mrs. Whittaker. "I wish you joy of your marriage, madam. I suspect you may need the good wishes." With that, she picked up her tray and returned to the kitchen, her heart pounding but her head held high. Mrs. Holloway was waiting by the kitchen door, a rare smile on her face. "Well done, girl. That'll be the talk of the town by sundown." Sophia let out a shaky breath. "I shouldn't have made a scene." "Wasn't a scene. Was justice." Mrs. Holloway patted her shoulder. "And now everyone knows you're not to be trifled with. That's worth more than gold out here." That evening, a bouquet of wildflowers was delivered to the hotel for Sophia. The accompanying note simply read, "Heard what happened at lunch. Wish I could have seen it. A.B." Sophia pressed one of the flowers between the pages of her Bible, a smile tugging at her lips despite everything. By Saturday, Sophia had settled into something resembling a routine. The work was hard but satisfying, and Mrs. Holloway proved to be a fair employer, if demanding. The hotel owner had even advanced Sophia a small sum to purchase fabric for a new dress, recognizing that her limited wardrobe wouldn't last long with daily wear. As promised, Aaron arrived precisely at 7. He wore a clean shirt and his best denims, his hair still damp from washing. When Sophia descended the stairs in her newly made dress, a simple blue cotton that nonetheless flattered her figure more than her severe Boston attire, had his face lit up with admiration. "Miss Fletcher," he said, offering his arm. "You look lovely." "Thank you." Sophia accepted his arm, keenly aware of Mrs. Holloway's watchful gaze from behind the reception desk. "And thank you for the flowers. They were a bright spot in a difficult day. Least I could do." He led her outside where a wagon waited instead of his horse. "Thought this might be more comfortable than riding double." The town hall was decorated with autumn leaves and kerosene lamps, casting a warm glow over the proceedings. A small band played lively tunes at one end, while tables laden with food and drink lined the other. People of all ages filled the space between dancing, talking, laughing. Conversations faltered briefly as Aaron escorted Sophia inside, curious eyes turning their way. Then, remarkably, several women approached, introducing themselves and welcoming Sophia to Silver Creek. "Don't mind the stairs," said a friendly woman who introduced herself as Martha Simmons, the blacksmith's wife. "New faces are rare enough to be interesting, especially pretty female ones." "I imagine my particular circumstances have added to the interest," Sophia replied wryly. Martha chuckled. "Daniel Whittaker's been hiding in his store since your confrontation. Did his new wife good to see his true colors early, I say." The evening progressed pleasantly. Sophia danced with Aaron and several other men, finding the country dances simpler but more energetic than the formal waltzes she'd learned in Boston. Aaron proved to be a capable dancer, if somewhat reserved. During a break in the music, they stepped outside for air. The night was clear and cool, stars scattered across the black velvet sky in a display more magnificent than anything Sophia had seen in the city. "It's beautiful," she murmured, gazing upward. "One of the things I love about the West," Aaron agreed. "You can see forever out here. Makes a man feel small, but in a good way." "You've been here 5 years," Mrs. Holloway said. He nodded. "Came after Appomattox, couldn't go home Georgia after fighting for the Union. Worked my way west, found Silver Creek by accident when my horse came up lame. The double cross needed hands and I needed work, he shrugged. Been there ever since. You like it, ranch work, most days. His smile was crooked. It's honest work, hard but straightforward. Cattle don't care what side you fought on or where you came from. No, I suppose they don't. Sophia turned to face him. Why did you help me, Mr. Barrett, at the station? He was silent for a long moment. Couldn't leave you there in the rain, he said finally. My ma raised me better than that, and he hesitated. I know what it's like to arrive somewhere with plans that fall apart. To be alone. The simple honesty of his answer touched her deeply. Well, I'm grateful. I don't know what I would have done. You'd have managed, he said with surprising certainty. I've watched you this week. You're stronger than you know, Miss Fletcher. Their eyes met, and something unspoken passed between them, a recognition, perhaps, of kindred spirits. The moment was broken by Martha Simmons calling from the doorway. Aaron Barrett, are you monopolizing our newest resident? The dancing's starting again. Aaron offered his arm with a smile. Shall we? As they returned to the dance floor, Sophia felt, for the first time since arriving in Silver Creek, that perhaps this unexpected detour in her life wasn't a disaster after all. Perhaps it was a beginning. October faded into November, bringing with it the first biting winds of winter. Sophia established herself as an indispensable part of the hotel's operations, her organizational skills and attention to detail earning Mrs. Holloway's grudging respect. She'd moved from laundry to helping with the books and occasionally serving in the dining room when they were short-handed. Aaron came to town at least once a week, usually finding some excuse to stop by the hotel. Sometimes it was legitimate ranch business. Other times, the pretenses were transparently thin. Their friendship grew with each visit, conversations about books they'd read, experiences they'd had, dreams they harbored. Have you given thought to what you'll do when spring comes? Aaron asked one crisp afternoon as they walked along Silver Creek's Main Street. He'd brought supplies to town and insisted on escorting Sophia on her errands. Mrs. Holloway has offered to make my position permanent, Sophia replied. It's not what I imagined for myself, but it's respectable work. Aaron nodded thoughtfully. The school teacher's leaving after Christmas. Getting married and moving to Denver. Town council's looking for a replacement. Sophia's steps faltered. A teacher, me, why not? You're educated, good with figures, patient from what I've seen, he shrugged. Just a thought. The idea took root in Sophia's mind. She'd always enjoyed learning, had even helped younger cousins with their studies back in Boston. Teaching would be a respectable position, one that came with its own small house attached to the schoolroom. I'll consider it, she said, feeling a flutter of excitement at the possibility. As they neared the general store, Sophia hesitated. She hadn't set foot inside since her confrontation with Daniel, preferring to send lists with Mrs. Holloway's other errands. Aaron noticed her pause. We could go to Miller's Hardware instead for what you need, he offered. It's a bit more expensive, but no, Sophia squared her shoulders. I can't avoid the place forever. This is my town now, too. Aaron's expression warmed at her words. That it is. Daniel was behind the counter when they entered, his expression souring when he saw them. Beside him stood a young Native American woman arranging bolts of fabric, her long black hair braided neatly down her back. Miss Fletcher, Daniel said stiffly. Mr. Barrett. Mr. Whittaker, Sophia replied with cool politeness. I need 5 pounds of coffee for the hotel and Mrs. Holloway asked for a dozen candles. As Daniel gathered the items, the young woman approached Sophia with a shy smile. "Your new dress looks nice," she said, her English accented but clear. "Good stitching." "Thank you," Sophia replied, surprised. "I made it myself." I'm Wren, the young woman said. I sew for Mr. Whittaker, fix clothes, make new ones sometimes. You're very skilled, Sophia said, examining the precisely arranged fabric display. I'm Sophia Fletcher. I know, everyone know. Wren's dark eyes darted to Aaron, then back to Sophia, a knowing look in them. You need more fabric. I show you new shipment. As they moved to the fabric section, Aaron hanging back awkwardly among the dry goods, Wren leaned closer. Mr. Whittaker's wife left, she whispered. Went back to her father's house. Big fight after you spoke to them. Oh, Sophia wasn't sure how to respond. She hadn't wished actual harm on the young Mrs. Whittaker, merely wanted Daniel to face the consequences of his actions. Good riddance, Wren continued, surprising Sophia. She treated me like dirt beneath her feet. You treated me like person, she smiled. Mr. Barrett watching you like hawk watches rabbit, but nicer. Sophia felt her cheeks warm as she glanced back at Aaron, who quickly pretended interest in a display of pocket knives. We're friends, she said softly. Friends is good start, Wren replied sagely. Best marriages start as friends. The comment stayed with Sophia long after they'd left the store, Aaron carrying her purchases despite her protests that she could manage. Wren seems nice, Sophia remarked as they walked back toward the hotel. Cheyenne girl. Her father was a translator for the army before he was killed. She's got a foot in both worlds, not really belonging to either. Aaron's expression was sympathetic. Daniel pays her a pittance for work that would cost him 3 times as much from anyone else, but she's got nowhere else to go. That's terrible, Sophia said, genuinely distressed. Isn't there something that can be done? Aaron shrugged. That's the way it is out here for a lot of folks. Especially Indians, even peaceful ones with skills. Sophia frowned, thinking, Perhaps she could make dresses for the hotel guests. Many ladies arrive needing alterations or repairs after long journeys. Mrs. Holloway mentioned it just the other day. That's not a bad idea, Aaron said, looking at her with new respect. Might speak to Mrs. Holloway about it. I will. Sophia was already planning how to present the idea to her employer, who was practical enough to recognize a good business opportunity when she saw one. They reached the hotel, pausing at the entrance. Aaron set down her packages, seemingly reluctant to leave. There's a Christmas social at the ranch next month, he said finally. Boss invites the whole town. Good food, music, would you consider coming, as my guest? The hesitancy in his voice, from a man usually so confident on horseback and in physical matters, was endearing. Sophia found herself smiling. I'd be honored, Mr. Barrett. Aaron, he reminded her gently. After all this time, I think you could call me Aaron. Aaron, she repeated, liking the way it felt to say his name so freely. And you must call me Sophia. His smile was like sunrise breaking over the mountains. Sophia, he said, as if testing the sound of it. I like that. As he walked away, Sophia felt Mrs. Holloway's presence behind her. That man's sweet on you, the older woman observed bluntly. Has been since he found you in the rain. We're friends, Sophia protested, echoing her words to Wren. Mrs. Holloway snorted. Aaron Barrett doesn't have friends, especially not female ones. Man's kept to himself since he got here. Works, drinks occasionally at the saloon, goes to church on Sundays, minds his business. Until you. Sophia gathered her packages, not meeting the landlady's knowing gaze. He was kind to a stranger, that's all. If you say so, Mrs. Holloway replied, unconvinced. But a woman in your position should consider her prospects carefully. A good man who looks at you the way he does isn't something to dismiss lightly. I'm not dismissing anything, Sophia said quietly. I'm just not rushing. Fair enough. Mrs. Holloway nodded approvingly. Now come help me with the dinner preparations. The stage is due in an hour with 6 passengers. and they'll all be hungry. December arrived with a biting cold that penetrated even the sturdiest buildings. Silver Creek transformed under a blanket of snow, the harsh edges of the frontier town softened by white drifts and frost-rimmed windows. True to her word, Sophia had spoken to Mrs. Holloway about Wren, and the young woman now spent 3 afternoons a week at the hotel, mending linens and creating made-to-order garments for travelers. The arrangement had proven profitable for everyone involved, and Wren's shy demeanor had blossomed with the independence of earning a fair wage. Sophia, meanwhile, had applied for the teaching position. The town council, impressed with her education, and the references Mrs. Holloway provided regarding her character, had provisionally accepted her application, pending a final interview after the new year. Life was settling into place in ways Sophia could never have imagined that rainy day at the train station. The only unsettled element was her growing feelings for Aaron Barrett, feelings she suspected, based on the warmth in his eyes when they met, were reciprocated. The day of the double-cross Christmas social dawned clear and cold. Aaron arrived at the hotel promptly at noon, driving a sleigh instead of his usual wagon. "Thought you might enjoy the ride," he explained as he helped Sophia up to the seat, tucking thick buffalo robes around her to ward off the cold. "It's not often the snow's good enough for sleighing." The journey to the ranch was magical. The sleigh runners whispered over the packed snow, the horses' harness bells jingling merrily as they traveled through pine forests and open meadows. Aaron pointed out landmarks along the way, a hidden waterfall, now frozen into fantastic ice formations, the distant mountains where he sometimes rode to check on strays, the line cabin where he'd spent his first winter in the territory. "It's beautiful," Sophia said, gazing at the pristine landscape. "So different from the city." "Hard country," Aaron admitted, "but worth it, I think." They crested a hill, and below them spread the Double Cross, a collection of sturdy log buildings nestled in a sheltered valley. Smoke rose from chimneys, and colorful bunting decorated the main house and bunkhouse. Other sleighs and wagons were already arriving, a stream of visitors coming from town and neighboring ranches. "Home," Aaron said simply, a note of pride in his voice as he guided the horse down the slope. The ranch owner, Jefferson Douglas, greeted them warmly. A bear of a man with a booming voice and expansive gestures, he clapped Aaron on the shoulder with enough force to stagger a smaller man. "Barrett, about time. And this must be the lady who's got you riding into town every week on the thinnest excuses I've ever heard." He bowed gallantly to Sophia. "Jefferson Douglas, madam. Welcome to the Double Cross." "Sophia Fletcher," she replied, trying not to laugh at Aaron's mortified expression. "Thank you for having me. Any friend of Barrett's is welcome here," Douglas declared. "Especially one as pretty as yourself. Now come in, come in. Martha's laid out enough food to feed an army, and the fiddlers are just warming up." The main house was transformed for the celebration. Evergreen boughs and red ribbons adorned every surface, and a massive tree stood in the corner of the great room, decorated with paper chains, carved ornaments, and real candles that would be lit as darkness fell. Tables groaned under the weight of holiday dishes, roasted meats, pies, cakes, and a large bowl of eggnog that smelled potently of whiskey. Sophia recognized many faces from town, but there were just as many strangers, ranch hands from the Double Cross and neighboring spreads, families from outlying homesteads who rarely made it into Silver Creek. Aaron stayed close, introducing her proudly as Miss Fletcher, our new schoolteacher, his hand warm at the small of her back. As the afternoon wore on, Sophia found herself genuinely enjoying the festivities. The music was lively, the company cheerful, and Aaron proved to be a considerate companion, ensuring she was never left alone for long and that her cup and plate were always full. When the dancing began, Aaron led her onto the floor with the same quiet confidence he showed on horseback. As they moved through the steps of a country reel, Sophia found herself studying his face, the small lines at the corners of his eyes, the way his serious expression softened when he smiled, the careful way he held her, as if she were precious and might break. "You're staring," he murmured as they came together in the dance. "Am I?" She felt her cheeks warm. "I was just thinking." "About what?" "How different things turned out from what I expected. When I came west, I mean." His expression sobered. "Do you regret it, coming here?" The question hung between them as the dance separated them briefly. When they came back together, Sophia answered truthfully, "No, I don't think I do." His eyes searched hers, looking for confirmation. Even though the man I came to marry turned out to be a scoundrel. Even though I'm working for my keep instead of being a merchant's wife." Sophia smiled softly. "Life rarely goes as planned, Aaron. Sometimes it goes better." The hope that bloomed in his expression made her heart skip. When the dance ended, he kept hold of her hand. "Would you walk with me? There's something I'd like to show you." He led her out onto the wide veranda that wrapped around the house, retrieving her coat and his own as they went. The sun was setting, painting the snow-covered landscape in shades of pink and gold. In the barnyard, ranch hands were lighting a massive bonfire that sent sparks spiraling into the darkening sky. Aaron guided her to a quiet corner of the porch, away from the occasional couples slipping out for fresh air or privacy. From his coat pocket, he withdrew a small package wrapped in brown paper and tied with string. "It's not Christmas yet," he said, a hint of nervousness in his voice. "But I wanted to give you this, in private." Sophia accepted the package, careful not to tear the paper as she unwrapped it. Inside was a small wooden box, beautifully crafted with a delicate floral pattern carved into the lid. When she opened it, a soft melody began to play a music box. "It's beautiful," she whispered, watching the tiny mechanism turn. "My mother had one like it," Aaron explained. "When things were bad during the war and they were bad, often she'd play it. Said it reminded her that there was still beauty in the world." He paused, seeming to gather his courage. "That's what you've been for Silver Creek, Sophia. For me. A reminder that there's beauty even after hard times." Sophia closed the box gently, holding it to her chest. "Aaron, I know it's too soon," he rushed on. "You came here expecting to marry one man, and here I am, barely 6 weeks later, all but declaring myself. But I need you to know that day at the train station. Finding you there wasn't just chance. It was the luckiest day of my life." The raw honesty in his voice moved her deeply. "Mine too," she admitted, though it certainly didn't feel that way at the time. He took her free hand, his touch warm despite the cold air. "I'm not asking for promises. Not yet. But I wanted you to know that when you're ready, if you're ever ready, there's a man in Silver Creek who thinks you hung the moon and stars." Sophia looked down at their joined hands, then back up at his face, so earnest in the fading light. "When I came west, I thought I knew what I wanted. A home, security, perhaps eventually love." She squeezed his hand. "I still want those things, but I've learned they don't always come in the package you expect." Hope kindled in his eyes. "Sophia, let's take our time," she said softly, "but know that I care for you, Aaron Barrett. More than I thought possible after so short an acquaintance." His smile was like sunshine breaking through clouds. Slowly, giving her every chance to pull away, he leaned down and pressed his lips gently to hers. The kiss was brief, sweet, a promise rather than a demand. When they returned to the party, something had shifted between them, a certainty, a foundation upon which something enduring might be built. If Mrs. Holloway noticed Sophia's flushed cheeks or the way Aaron's hand lingered on hers as he helped her remove her coat. She kept her observations to herself, but her approving nod spoke volumes. The new year brought changes to Silver Creek and to Sophia's life. She was officially appointed as the town's schoolteacher, moving into the small but comfortable house attached to the schoolroom. The position came with respect and independence, two things she valued highly after her experiences. Aaron courted her properly through the winter months, coming to town every Sunday after church to take her for sleigh rides or simply to sit by her fire and talk. They discovered shared interests in books and music, and divergent but complementary views on everything from politics to the proper way to bake bread. Their disagreements were as illuminating as their agreements, each learning from the other's perspective. By April, when the first wildflowers began to appear in the melting snow, Aaron was a fixture at the schoolhouse, often appearing to make necessary repairs that somehow always coincided with the end of Sophia's teaching day. The children teased her about her cowboy bow, but Sophia found she didn't mind. On a perfect spring evening, exactly 6 months after that rainy day at the train depot, Aaron proposed properly, down on one knee in the schoolhouse garden he'd helped her plant. "I'm not a wealthy man," he said, holding out a simple gold band. "But the double-cross foreman is retiring come fall, and Mr. Douglas has offered me his position. It comes with the use of a small house on the property. It's not fancy, but it would be ours, if you'll have me." Sophia looked at the man before her, steady, honorable, kind, and at the ring that represented not just his love but his respect for her independence. She'd come to Silver Creek seeking a husband and found so much more: purpose, community, and a love that had grown naturally, like the garden around them, from the smallest seed to something strong and flourishing. "Yes," she said, her heart full. "Yes, I will have you, Aaron Barrett." Their wedding in June was a town affair, with Mrs. Holloway insisting on hosting the reception at the hotel. Wren, now established as Silver Creek's most sought-after seamstress, created Sophia's wedding dress as her gift. Even Daniel Whitaker, somewhat humbled by his failed marriage and Sophia's success, contributed a wedding gift of fine china. As Aaron led her onto the dance floor for their first dance as husband and wife, Sophia caught sight of his duster coat, hung carefully by the door, the same coat he'd draped around her shoulders that rainy day. "You kept it," she murmured, nodding toward it. Aaron followed her gaze, his arms tightening around her waist. "Of course, it's what brought you to me." "I think," Sophia said, resting her head against his chest, feeling the steady beat of his heart, "that I was always meant to find you. Even if it took a rainstorm, a broken heart, and a borrowed coat to get me here." In the years that followed, Silver Creek would witness many changes. The railroad would bring new prosperity, the territory would become a state, and Aaron and Sophia Barrett would raise 3 children in the house on the Double Cross Ranch. Sophia would continue to teach, becoming a fixture in the community, while Aaron would eventually become a partner in the ranch he'd helped build. But through it all, they would keep 2 mementos of their beginning: a music box that played a sweet, hopeful melody, and a worn duster coat that had once sheltered a rain-soaked stranger, the first act of kindness in a lifetime of love.